maximize my screen because that's what's going to be shown live on Twitch, like in Zoom, if you want to make that the focal point.
Yeah. So Jay's window will be what the audience will see on the show. So there will be miniatures of us.
Just right click on that.
Jay
you don't have
stuff.
to. You know,
How neat.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you can show it either way you want, so to speak. So you can have him, Jay's window large, and have you and me tiny on top.
Yeah, which is
whichever you prefer.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're going. We're live now as preludes are going up. You know, got all my
they can
sponsors.
hear us now,
but it's okay. Chatting's a good thing. Just we always talk over over ads here. It's our shtick. So did you enjoy yourself at GaryCon?
I did very much. It was wonderful.
Good.
Oh, good.
That was very exciting. My wife was actually the one who talked me into going to it. We had come across it and I mentioned, oh, there's Greyhawk. I remember Greyhawk. And I had such a good time with it and everything. And then she said, well, why don't you go?
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I guess. And she said, don't go. You need a hobby.
That's wonderful. Thank her so much from all of us.
She's right with me. She's waving off to the...
She can come in anytime she wants. Hello.
Yep, that's awesome. Yep.
No, so my wife got me into coming back to Greyhawk and all that.
Oh, that's awesome. And I know you couldn't...
quite a pleasure.
I know you couldn't sit in on ours because we were in that side room and it was packed already.
Yeah.
But, this is...
That will be future.
Yeah, we live streamed it. That was our Legends and Lore show.
Oh.
We were live. Okay. We live streamed all of them. But this one's going to be. We've had you can name someone. We've had Zeb on. We've had Jeff Grubb. We've had Wolfgang. We've had a lot.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah.
I haven't
on
seen
the show.
Zeb in years. Jeff Grubb is excellent. I haven't seen Zeb Cook in many years.
Yeah, he was really good on the discussion. He was talking about a lot of. A lot of why some things happened back in the day, and all. It was a really neat discussion.
Oh, wonderful guy.
Yeah, Leonard, Ed, all the time. Ed comes on almost like every other month. We have Ed Greenwood on. We have some fun with that.
Good.
And Len was kind of a co-host for
He
was on like 40 times. And it was great.
It was, he knew he was ill, but he really did some
when
wonderful
he
things.
could, then he was on until the end. So
yeah. But this is we're looking forward. We had Steve Winter on 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
That was another good discussion. But I'm really excited about this because, like, the depth of. I don't know how you found time to be the editor and write all those articles during the Arrow Dragon. My gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, so much stuff. All great content. Wonderful content too. Stuff that's embedded into the lore of Greyhawk to this day. Like all the deity articles and stuff, which we talk about. Wonderful stuff. So crowd's already starting to roll in. That's just good. If you don't have to, I will follow the Twitch chat. When questions come out, it's no problem. But we'll be live on Twitch, which is great.
Oh, you're live on Twitch.
Oh yeah, we're live on Twitch TV. Yeah, absolutely on my channel. Yeah.
We can put it in chat here. Put the link. Yeah, I'll put the link in chat. It's Lord Kasumba.
Yeah, all one word. That's a character name. So.
Lord Kasumba.
Yes.
Yeah.
For my 42-year campaign. Yeah. Great.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Oh, it's all one word.
Yeah, it's all one word. On Twitch, there's no spaces in Twitch. Yeah, if there's a space, it's an underscore. You can't have spaces in the Twitch. Yep. And it's like a 6-second delay, and that's one of the reasons why we link your screen up there, so you see exactly what's up at live. What am I doing here? I'm talking to myself there, Roger. I'm assuming Roger is fine, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great.
Wonderful. All right, let me jump ahead here to Gamescape. Good evening, everyone. As we're still rolling through our preludes, a couple minutes early still. Getting some crowd in here. As I've put it out. I think we're gonna have a fairly large crowd tonight.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, definitely. We usually average. I don't know, on these shows between 90 and 110 people watching.
Oh, okay, that's excellent.
Yeah, definitely.
How did you do that?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be on. I owe you an apology for being so long.
Oh, no. No worries. No worries at all. We've had like when I started this, and like Anna and I kind of partnered. Would it take 6 months, Anna, to get Len on?
Well, yeah, but we totally understand it. Everybody has lives and stuff, and this is a hobby, and sometimes it's kind of a full-time hobby. Maybe some of us do it, but it's still there's more important stuff than role-playing games. But they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, they're doing great.
Oh my! Tom Armstrong's on in Twitch chat. And I think I have your article that you wrote with him that I still use the character class today. Right, Tom? Wow.
Tom Armstrong, yes. Sir.
Oh my, that is fantastic.
Yeah, we were Army buddies.
Oh, that is awesome.
Oh, back in the late 1970s, early 1980s, we were over in West Germany. We were using the West Germany.
Yeah.
And, no, it was excellent.
Wow.
So,
that is fantastic.
A good man. Good man.
We're jumping right here. We're gonna get into things here. So yeah, that's such a great article. I believe that I'm talking about the Bandit Class.
I think it's the Bandit.
Yeah. Popping it up. Yeah. I just want to make sure. I got some good stories about that. Well, I'm glad, Ben, you woke up in time. So, take some good chat here to Tom.
Oh, tell him I wish you well.
Yes, they can hear us.
Oh, absolutely. Good man. Oh, we had a great crew.
Hey, man, thank you for the sub. So we're going to start a little early because we got Roger on. Might as well get cranking at it. I know Gary Hooley and a lot of them go, you started early, but you know, why not? You know, get a little bit early start here. So tons and tons of data here. Big hardcore can see it. So wonderful. Plus we got a great giveaway tonight.
Fighter, I remember that. I wrote the article because I was trying to get advantage of player characters.
Oh, that sounds like the best incitement to write an article. Yep.
Yes, exactly. The gift that keeps on giving. So.
Yep.
Oh, it's from a Dragon magazine article. I could do this.
Well, they were official rules, weren't they? In some ways, or how was
Not
that?
really.
Okay, so it was
they weren't official, but they were suggestions.
Okay.
Yeah, I did send it, so. All right, there we come. We'll come on live here. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Jake Lurkazumba. We got a really treat tonight. I'm really excited about this discussion. On our 197th Gabbin, legend of the D&D in the early days, I guess the mid days at TSR, right? The glory era at TSR, and some unbelievable publications. Mr. Roger Moore. Roger, welcome. Anna Meyer and myself. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much.
Our pleasure. So, and things will be popping up as people sub, do cheers, chats, if you see all that in there. So don't, it's part of the Twitch experience. Thank you, Amy, for that. Scruffles0728. This is Mrs. Roger. He is reading everything off the big TV. All right, cool. So you got it. So you're watching us on your TV, which is awesome. Yep. Mm-hmm. That is fantastic. So, Mrs. Scruffles, if you can hit the heart button at the bottom, so you can follow the stream. That would be awesome. You'll see that pop up too. Yeah, we already got a hype train going. That is nuts. So,
okay,
very, very cool. So, we were so excited when we heard that you were coming to GaryCon, and I know in Christoph's seminar, there was a Roger Moore, and I said to Anna, so I said to Josh Pop, Zarathon, and Anna said, "I wonder if that's the Roger Moore." And Josh Pop goes, "No, it's not." And then we looked into it, and it was. So we're like, really cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that was fantastic, and that kind of set things rolling. And so your wife, tell us that story real quick again. Your wife convinced you to go.
Yes, my wife was looking up things on GaryCon. She wanted to go to an actual real game convention, but she wanted to go to something where the role-playing element was strong. And we'd been following GaryCon because we're friends with Heidi Gygax and a number of the other people who work at the convention. But she finally talked me into it. So she's been actually the guiding light on the entire process here, getting me back into Greyhawk and things. We've been involved in a long-running Pathfinder campaign in the area, and it's actually been very nice. I've really enjoyed the Pathfinder rules quite a lot. So that's been a great pleasure getting into that. But no, we got up there and got into the room and everything, and I was just excited to see that people were still interested in Greyhawk. That was actually quite a thrill for me. So being able to talk to people about how their campaigns are going, and you and your wonderful maps. And
thank you.
You're very welcome. I've enjoyed those an awful lot. That's been very good. So it was just a great pleasure overall.
It's there is a real resurgence on, especially with we have a streaming community, and we have an annual virtual Greyhawk Con. So we have the 3rd annual one coming up first weekend in October. We've done multiple fundraisers, Roger, where we've had 3 days of fundraising going for St. Jude, and this last year we raised over $20,000 this year for St. Jude for doing Greyhawk streaming. So we did a There Will Be Dragons. Larry Elmore gave a whole bunch of his signed prints for it. It was, we've had.
He's a wonderful guy. I love him.
Yeah. So, and this was right before GaryCon. So there's been a lot of great movement in the community. A lot of channels have Greyhawk content, and I do it every week. And here's the funny thing: Ed Greenwood plays in my Greyhawk game. So there you go. So it's going. We have Ed and Anna.
Excellent.
Yeah. So we have and Eric Boyd as well plays in that game too. So we have a lot of fun things going on, with that. So it's going well, and we really want to just talk with you about your experiences, how you got involved, and I want to share and I know Anna does too, all of the information and articles that you've put together that really have formed my game, and a lot of early rules that are still in Greyhawk. I mean, they're still in publications. So how did you come about starting to work for TSR, and what year was that?
That was kind of a funny story. I was actually in the Army at the time. I was in the Army for 5 years. I was stationed in West Germany for 3 of those years. So that was about 1978 to 1981. I was stationed in the Mannheim area at Sullivan Barracks. I was a mental health counselor in the Army. And I most of my life, I've alternated between 2 careers, either mental health and psychology or gaming. So it's been one of the 2. What happened was we were in a gaming group in Germany, and I started to write articles because I thought, well, I've got this idea I want to send in. I think the very first one I wrote was a little creature called a frost, which was like a winter fairy kind of thing that would cast spells relating to ice and snow. And I did that. I kind of got the hang of it. The reason I had time to do it was because not a lot of people in my area, the Army and tanker units and things like that, they didn't really like coming to psychology, mental health counseling meetings. For the most part, it didn't look very good in front of, with the other people in the unit. So they wouldn't show up. And then I would be left with a whole hour with nothing to do. And I found a typewriter and I started to pick out articles and just mail them in, just on the spur of the moment. And they began to take them and publish them. And after a while, Ed Greenwood and I at the same time were made contributing editors to Dragon, which just meant we just sent stuff in quite a lot and they would publish more of us. than they might other people. So that was quite an enjoyable time. When I got back to the United States, I went in 1981. 1982, I was in Louisville, Kentucky, my hometown, and was going to the University of Louisville, trying to complete a degree in psychology. Was not able to do so. Statistics, and we'll just leave it at that.
That's a tough one. Yep.
It was a very tough one in those days before the computers got to be a lot more common. It was very, very difficult, and did not do very well at it. I was doing fine with everything else, but statistics, no. Which is funny because my current job is psychology statistics. I'm doing quite well at it now.
Yeah.
Yes, doing quite well at it now because I have computers to help me with all that. And I can follow everything that's going on with it. So that's worked out really well. It's kind of a niche job these days. But anyway, I decided to call up to TSR at the urging of my wife at the time. And they wound up having a slot available for somebody to work on the staff of Dragon magazine. Now, it was unfortunate that I'm playing with the screen there. It was unfortunate that about the time that I joined TSR in May 1983, that they started having a large number of layoffs. TSR was in a great deal of financial trouble, and it went from having a company of several thousand down to about 120. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, about 120. Yeah, it was pretty radical. Whole sections of the company got cut away, but they left Dragon magazine and basically Dragon periodicals, TSR periodicals, they left them alone. I worked on the Dragon magazine staff for a time, as a editorial assistant, and then an assistant editor, and then Kim Mohad left. He went off with another game company, and I became the publisher in chief for the TSR periodicals and the editor for Dragon magazine. Shortly after that, we started another magazine called Dungeon Adventures. That worked out really well.
Yes, it did.
I managed to get hold of a very good editor I knew from before, who was became the editor of that later on. But no, it progressed along and it went really well until sometime in the early 1990s. I switched over to the games division to work with some of the properties in the games division. One of the properties I was working with was Greyhawk. Unfortunately, my first interaction with Greyhawk was to shut it down. The problem was, I'll just confess to it now. The problem was it was seen by the higher ups as competing with Forgotten Realms and some of the properties that they really wanted to keep. They didn't have anyone else who was going to follow up on any of the things that have been done with Greyhawk.
Yeah.
So
was it seen as a leftover from Gary's time at the company after he left? And
well, they ran it. Yeah, they ran it for quite a while. I mean, they were happy to keep Greyhawk. It was very popular. A lot of people remembered it very well. Actually, I became familiar with Greyhawk and really began to develop an appreciation from it from the time that I joined TSR. And I just developed kind of a thing about it. I really liked the way it had been put together. I found that it was, it had a lot of interesting quirks to it. That there were things about it that that were kind of like, I think of sometimes it's like a secret construction. There was a way it had been put together that if you studied it long enough, it became clear. I mean, it was a number of things like, well, some of the things are fairly obvious. You know that a lot of the geographic features are named after people that Gary knew. Also, it's a flopped map of Europe with a great distortion going on. The Thilronian Peninsula, where all the ice, snow, and frost barbarians are. It's just Scandinavia, a very distorted one. Parent land is Switzerland, and so on and so forth. But after you studied it for a longer, you began to develop an appreciation for the depth of the construction of it. He had really paid a lot of attention. He had done his homework. I will say that for Gary. He had really done his homework when he was putting it together. I mean, he had a great knowledge of European history and the setup, and he also knew a lot of fantasy things, Conan the Barbarian, of course, and a lot of the other fantasy stuff. I don't think he was quite as motivated by Lord of the Rings as other people were, but he liked Fafhrd the Grey Mouser, a lot of the other classic fantasy stories. But all of that became quite clear as you studied what he had written about Greyhawk. You know, he actually had quite a detailed knowledge of it, kind of an intimate knowledge about what was going on in there. He really liked it. And that showed, you know, that he really enjoyed working on it. It meant a lot to him. There was eventually came a time when I didn't really leave TSR. I started, my family at the time moved to Louisville, Kentucky for various reasons. And, but they kept me on as a full-time employee. I began working as a telecommuter until around the December of 2000, when by that time Hasbro had taken over all the companies and everything. Hasbro ran into a lot of problems and they laid a lot of people off, including me. So I finally did get caught in one of the layoffs, but I didn't have any ill will about it. I did decide at the time, December 2000, that I needed to move on in another direction. And I kind of left role-playing behind. I didn't have any bad feeling about it, but I just said, I need to do something else. So I went back to psychology. I got a master's degree in psychology from Louisville, Kentucky. And after kind of a blah career as a substitute teacher, I managed to get on with Psychiatric Hospital in Louisville, Kentucky. I worked for them for a time and eventually started working for the U.S. Army in Fort Knox, Kentucky, and was doing psychological statistics. That worked out very well. I really enjoyed that kind of work. And I switched between Fort Knox to South Carolina, where I am now, where I was working at Fort Jackson, which is in the center of the state near Columbia, South Carolina. And I was doing the same psychological statistics, interviewing, lots of other things like that relating to the military. And eventually they closed down the unit that I was working with in South Carolina, and I lost my job there, but I was able in about a year later to pick up with the state of South Carolina, I work for now. And it's been about, oh goodness, from around 2015, I think, to the present time, I've worked for the state of South Carolina in psychology statistics, psychological statistics. I do a lot of reports on things for them in the morning. And so it's worked out very well. I've really enjoyed that. But I've needed a hobby.
Gaming and stuff in the meantime? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, my wife and I ran into a group, some people that she knew that were involved in a Pathfinder campaign. One of the judge had, I mean, the game master had basically had his own campaign world. It was quite fascinating. I could talk for quite a while about it. He had done a lot of work on it. It was one of those campaigns, kind of like Ed Greenwood's Forgotten Realms, where the person's been working on it since they were, very young, and had added to it over time, and it developed into a very interesting setup and all that. Cool. So I enjoyed. I became pretty familiar with Pathfinder. I really liked it. I mean, I
played it for 10 years too, or more than 10 years. Yep.
And there you are. And there you are.
Yep.
I didn't like the part. I still play first edition, where all the rules are kind of broken up and scattered throughout the entire thing, and you have to hunt.
Yeah, it was a natural evolvement of 3.5. So when you played 3.5, then Pathfinder was the way to continue, so to speak.
Yeah. The younger Roger Moore would look back and say, "You're a traitor for abandoning it."
Yeah.
How dare
there was
you?
A lot of it was a lot of sentiment back and forth, and then there's still edition wars and stuff going on in the community.
I'm a Pathfinder fan right now. I mean, it is
I've gone
better.
back slightly to the 5e side of things and advanced 5e. But I still have. I played Pathfinder 2nd edition a little bit. I'm fond of that too. So it's tough when you have many good. Many good
all the way
choices.
Still.
Yeah. Jay has evolved into his own old school version here. That is kind of cool.
So
really
exactly,
cool.
Roger.
Yes, sir.
This is not available on Drive-Thru-RPG, and this was donated by Troy, one of our Cannonball. This is an original Return of the Eight. This is our giveaway tonight, by the way. This is not a reprint, everyone. This is an original Return of the Eight.
Yep.
So
I've got 2 of those.
Nice. It's on my wall of fame as well. So I have a wall of fame of 20 some. Let me throw this up here for you. And now Jay always hits a wrong button, and we have an emote for that, Roger. But hopefully I don't hit one here. So just to show you,
as long as it doesn't end the show, and he almost did that yesterday.
So here are 24 published source modules of mine that I love. And there's a Return of the Eight. As you can see, second row next to Baltron's Beacon. Between so it's up there with all that. It's on the wall down in the basement.
Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Just so you know. Hey, Gargamon, thank you for the raid in. Really appreciate it. So I just wanted to show you that I want to discuss that later on and try and go a little chronologically. But hey, it sounds like you had a second great career after gaming, and now with your wife's little nudge, maybe you can get back into it. And this community is really growing, and we're excited. Just little baby steps here, but there's a lot.
Have you back in the community again?
Yeah. Just whenever you whenever
you so
you
much.
can.
It's very kind.
Absolutely. So, do you remember the first Dragon article you did? I have one from Dragon 50 where you did mounts, flying mounts. Was there one before that?
Yes.
Okay, I missed it. Yeah.
You talked about that little frost monster.
It was the frost in the Dragon's Bestiary. That was the earliest article I did that was published. It was not necessarily the first article I wrote, but it was the first one that got published, so I counted as number 1.
Okay.
So Frost was the very first. So never developed into a very popular creature, I guess, since it's not appeared since then. But it was fun to do, and I enjoyed it.
But here's some interesting things, audience, I found that I didn't know. And I always come across these while I'm doing research. You created the Spriggan. I did not know that, and it's in Dragon 59, Spriggan, created by Roger Moore. It's a cool one there. So you get your gnome giant mix there a little bit. So that was a cool one I found in 59. A neat monster there. Really a cool one. When I think about what you've done in that era, the late 50s in Dragon, late 50s to the mid 60s, I think it's the golden era of Dragon magazine. I mean, they're just so fantastic. I think number 60 is the best of all time, and you have a lot in there that I want to discuss. But how did it come about, the demi-human articles? Because that's like the gods and the points of view. So let me switch over.
Great.
Yeah, let me switch over here. I think these start in 58 with I think you started with oh my gosh, which one is it? Dwarvish or Halfling? Starts in Dragon 58. It's the first one. It's got to be.
I think it was the dwarves.
Yeah, Dwarvish point of view. So this starts in number 58 here. Yeah, and then you do, and with this, and this it's very Greyhawk based, the discussion. Hey, thank you, Tombstone. And then from there, you do a listing of all the gods of each. So are they all of your own creation? All the deities.
A lot of the deities I took from the Deities and Demigods Cyclopedia. They were mentioned by name only. And I think I may have added a couple on top of that. But the original Deities and Demigods Cyclopedia, the hardbound, had the major gods of like the dwarves and the elves and all that, been mentioned as offhand the names of some of the other ones. And I just took those and developed them from there. I took what had been written and just expanded up. Yeah. Clangeddon, Dumathoin, Abathor, all of those, I would just take their names and then I would just flesh them out from that point.
Yeah, because they were just mentioned. They weren't. You fleshed them out completely. So
yeah, that was the point. I wanted to try and build them up exactly, as in as much depth as I could, so that they became good options for people. People could read about what was available. This was the time I was reading a lot of Lord of the Rings stuff. I had a great many Lord of the Rings books. I don't have them anymore. Wound up giving them to my youngest son, I think. I was really very much into how the character, how the different non-human races were developed in the Lord of the Rings, and particularly like halflings, and elves and dwarves. And I would read as much as I could find about that. And it really got me to thinking a lot about, what's the proper way to role play a certain character race and all that. And so I did the best I could to come up with the different characters. You see the rapper, which
that's a great monster. That's an awesome one, because it's only, I don't think it's placed anywhere else except in that Dragon and Best of Dragon Volume 3.
I think you're right.
And so, Roger, every 1,000 followers up through 10,000, we're at 8,100 now. I have given away my favorite publication of all time, even though it's a compilation, and that is Best of Dragon Volume 3, which are throughout all over the place. So I've given away 8 of them so far as we go through, because it's got everything in here all together. What a wonderful publication. But yeah, the rapper is one of those that I like to throw out on people, and they don't, if they don't have this, they would never know. But we jump to, I think I like to jump to 60, because 60, and this is Dragon. I think this is the best dragon of all time. This is my opinion. Okay. And I want to tell you why. And I'm going to bring up the whole one here, and then just ask you a couple questions. It has some hysterical things in it, and some wonderful things in this Dragon magazine. So I got your question, Gaetano. I'm definitely going to ask it. We go back to that. So you have your elven point of view here. You also have I think the Flight of the Boodles is in here, which is a funny game. Out on the Limb, all about elves. So this is some really great content on the elven point of view. And there's something in here that didn't make the Best of Dragon Volume 3, and that's the half elven point of view article. Is not in the Best of Dragon Volume 3, but it's in 60. So do you anything you remember? Were you still thinking Tolkien on the end of this? Were you thinking Greyhawk? What
For the most part, a lot of that was influenced by Tolkien. I can't say I borrowed it directly from him, but it was influenced a great deal about how Tolkien saw it. That I was seeing people role-playing elves primarily just as alternate humans with some superpowers, little things here they could see in the dark and so on and so forth. But I really wanted to do something where people would think a lot more about what the character was really like. If you've got a character that lives for literally hundreds, if not thousands of years, what's that going to do to its worldview and everything like that? They're going to seem like separate people. They're not going to be really thinking like human beings do, and all that. Half elves who would, wind up with something from both worlds, either good or bad, and that was important to keep in mind too. So it would just really made a big difference to me. I was very much into the role playing. I wanted people to think a lot about being different. Being different.
Here's some psychology.
Yeah. I can't help it.
No, it's awesome. I love it.
But very much, I wanted people to think about the differences, actually being a different kind of person, being a different kind of intelligent creature that had a logic to it, something that made sense. It was like, okay, yeah, I made up the thing. I think that I borrowed it from Lord of the Rings about elves not really sleeping, but kind of go into a deep dream state, which is a little bit from Lord of the Rings. The actual game effect is about the same, but you look at it differently.
It's still in the game to this day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know that.
It's in 5e. It's been with D&D ever since.
Oh, okay. Well,
I love that this article, you actually have them like sharing space with the gods of Olympus, the Greek gods.
Oh.
And here, like Hanali Selenil can share her pool here with Aphrodite, which is kind of cool. So so there was some crossover between that and the deities and demigods book, Jim Ward's book there on that. So yep, here it says the goddess Aphrodite is the only other being who shares the waters of Evergold with Hanali. That's pretty neat. So it's such a great, these deities are all fantastic. The one at the Sehanine Moonbow is the one that gets added after this. It's not in this article for the most part, in the second edition. But then here's this article that's not in Best of Dragon Volume 3 that's just kind of cool. I suggest if you haven't read this, I would read this, everyone. And that's this half-elven point of view, which is kind of gives you the feel of what it's like to be in both worlds, right? Both worlds is, and it's not a long article; it's a page, but it talks about how how they see it in both the human and the elven perspective. So I kind of really like this article as well, there, Roger. It's really well done.
Yeah.
But this entire 60 is yours. So I want to say why it's so great. Here's Gary Gygax with cantrips. There you go, Tim. You love cantrips. All cantrips article is in 60. And we move on. We still got a ton of more Roger in here. Some funny stuff. Ed Greenwood's in here. There we go. Ed's got something.
Firearms.
Yes.
Gunpowder.
Gunpowder, yes.
Yeah. What's your view on gunpowder? Does it belong in fantasy, or should it not be there at all?
No, it's perfectly fine in fantasy. There's quite a lot of fantasy that involves magical guns or magical, gunpowder and things like that. I have no trouble with it. Now in Greyhawk, Gary laid down the law on that many times, and I had done a lot of research on Greyhawk just as part of some of my other duties at the time, and he was across the board against it. I had no problem with that. That was fine. Some people say that the one hero deity, Merlin, who was dressed like a cowboy, he didn't actually use guns or pistols. He was using wands that had been modified to work, sound like, and function like actual guns and all that. But he had Gary was very adamant about that, and I have no trouble with that whatsoever.
That's
I think that's something that he had every right to lay down as a rule within the thing. I know what he was trying to defend against. The way that Advanced Dungeons and Dragons was set up, you had your round of action, melee round, which was 1 minute long. Now this is reasonable if you're sword fighting, within a sword fighting kind of thing. Not so reasonable if you're using guns, because then everything cuts to, the segment is not even long enough. The melee segment, which was 6 seconds, 10 of them per melee round, was not long enough either. Because you can get a lot of gunfire done in 6 seconds, unfortunately, which we know all about. But I would just say that it made a lot of sense what he did. Now, I believe, I don't want to speak for Ed Greenwood, but I have read some of his writings that he said that he originally allowed magical firearms or firearms in general to work within the Forgotten Realms with smoke powder and stuff. But then eventually he kind of turned against it. I think the game, it's really a question of game balance. It's, if everybody winds up using guns because they can get rid of the enemy more effectively, you've changed the game profoundly at that point. And you really need to do a lot of thinking about which direction you want this thing to head. So I don't have any problem with a campaign like Mystara, which I think used cinnabar or some other chemical element magical chemical element to create smoke powder and gunpowder. But within Greyhawk, it just didn't work. I mean, it would radically alter everything that happened in the campaign. Whichever group developed gunpowder first, kind of like in the real world, starts to overrun everybody else, and then they all pick it up and they start to overrun, and eventually you wind up with a state of more or less constant warfare, which shooting everything up. So it's kind of, it just doesn't work. within Greyhawk, it was totally appropriate for him to say no.
Yep.
So as I scroll down on 60 there, Roger, we come to this, which I have as an NPC / once in a long blue moon a piece, like someone will play one, but I've added to the spell list. So what were your thoughts on this? Because it's hysterical, the Jester.
I had been long interested, even before I joined TSR, in different player character classes. I was thinking of them not as non-player character, of course, because I had anticipated people would, of course, start using them as player character. And I thought of it as a player character class because I wanted to keep a stronger sense of balance within it. If you're going to run this thing in an actual campaign, it can't overpower the other stuff. And it was meant to be a comic relief kind of thing. It's not appropriate for every campaign.
No, but it's
a little more serious. But I spent a lot of time, I read everything I could find about jesters, about comedians, actually in the real world, and about, how character classes function, and then I just tried to put it all together and put it in there. It turned out, I think Gary Gygax had made reference to it. He didn't particularly care for it, but on the other hand, he was thinking about it. He had actually had some thoughts about creating his own version of the Jester, which I don't believe he ever did.
Well, Leonard had entertainers. So Leonard had the entertainer classes and you had the Jester class. So it works. I have once in a blue moon, I throw a Jester in. I have an NPC who leads an adventuring party. His name's Theo's Heroes, and he's like he's a self-proclaimed leader of it. That kind of fun stuff. And their thieving abilities are terrible because they can't really do much. They can catch items. They can pickpocket, but they can't do it like open locks or anything. They're really meant for comedy. And then they have spell failure, but it's something fun. It's a little different. So it is a class that is NPC mostly, but once in a blue moon we get one. This article by Arthur Collins is underrated. This is Darumud's Last Jest. It's the bard ability that you can actually have people die laughing. And I actually pulled this into my campaign, Roger. This is a wonderful article. That's why I say how great number 60 is. Wonderful story and a wonderful article and a wonderful ability to give your bards. So really a cool thing. And you have something else in here, which tops all of this. And do you remember, how did you come up with the organization name Spunk? Here we go. Midgets in the Earth by Roger Moore.
Oh.
You've been had. I want to hear the story about You've Been Had, please.
It's kind of difficult to give a lot of background on all of these.
I understand that because it's so long ago.
I don't remember. It's been a long time. And, it's very difficult to think of, some of the ones.
This is the halfling that was like, he tied up the guy and he fell out of an upper story window twice, and he's the leader of Spunk, which stands for Short People's Union for Nefarious Kleptomaniacs.
Oh, so I can trace that back to a time when I was gaming in the Army, when I had a halfling fighter thief multi-class who was named Paladin Brandybuck, borrowing Brandybuck from Tolkien. And Paladin Brandybuck pretended he was a paladin. He managed to get hold of a magical device that allowed him to cure wounds and everything. And he would pick up hirelings and followers, like a brownie, a leprechaun, things like that. That were also very short, but were where they were in on the joke that he was supposed to be an actual halfling paladin, and of course wasn't. He was just pretending. But they formed a little gang of I don't want to say criminals, but they had a lot of fun, and it was a lot of fun to run it in the campaigns I was in. So I would describe the whole thing about You've Been Had back to that time when I had Paladin Brandybuck. Tom Armstrong, I believe, will remember.
That's
Paladin,
awesome.
Brandy Buck. Yeah, he had some great characters too.
Well, note you've been had still active NPC in my campaign after 40 years. All right, just so you're aware, and Spunk is still an active organization because I love this so much. Here, I want to read this real quick. It says here, the purpose of this article is to add an element of confusion and outrage to otherwise typical encounters whenever the DM is in a lousy mood. The characters presented here are drawn from the pages of arcane texts and eldritch volumes of literature almost as old as yesterday's newspaper. The fact that I authored those texts reflects in no way upon the authenticity of the following material, and the reader is encouraged to regard these beings as utterly and factual and real. The author also has some real estate in the Everglades for those who are interested in seaside property. That's wonderful. See that I love that wit. I mean, that's just so wonderful. Cobalt Commandos made it into the gold box, Baldur's Gate. There were Cobalt Commandos in the computer game, so they made it from here into I know Forgotten Realms lore. I guess Ed liked them, so yeah. It was awesome. It was awesome.
Yes, it was a good time.
Yeah.
We used Tom Armstrong. I'll remember this too. In the games we played in Germany, they had. I was not part of this campaign, but they had a one-off campaign where everybody played a kobold. And they were part of a gigantic million-strong kobold army, and that would go up against somebody like Elric, who would just cut through the whole thing, and it was all over. And their characters would hide in trees and survive, and staying out of combat and everything. But so I got some of the ideas borrowing from that. It worked out very well. We just had some tremendous games.
That is fantastic. A couple questions from the audience. My buddy Ever Mysterious Tim says, Wamba, son of the Witless from Ivanhoe, is that where Jester, maybe you had some inspiration for the Jester?
Oh, no, I'm afraid I've never read
Okay.
Ivanhoe. I've always had it on my to-do list and never got there.
Okay.
It's part of the Wamba plays a fairly significant role in the Robin Hood movie, that British, I think it was made in 79, 80 or something like that. And there is the Jester Wamba is playing a big part in that movie.
Yeah. So that's and then we got the Phil not finishing his artist of the month thing here. Like I said,
Phil Folio is a wonderful guy.
Yeah. The Jolly Green Giants in here, Donald Duck. I mean, this was just like I don't know if this was an April Fool's issue or not, but The Martian, baseball book. There's all sorts of great. Oh my gosh,
sounds like an April Fool's.
It was just
lighthearted and fun.
I think it's probably
it was a wonderful time, and like I said, that's why I love 60. The Elven point of view in it alone, and the Elven gods makes it such a great one. So David Big Mac wanted to ask, how did you write for so many and consider so many different settings and get the feel of all the different ones at this time? Because you had some Greyhawk, you had some Forgotten Realms. I'm assuming Dragonlance is in there a little bit.
Yeah, well, Dragonlance quite a lot.
Yeah.
I wound up doing fiction for Dragonlance, writing. I did fiction for a number of the campaigns. That's kind of an interesting question. I remember there was one point where I was actually becoming interested in how the different game worlds were built up. What was their foundation? I noticed some discrepancies in the way that some of the campaign worlds were built up. Greyhawk didn't appear to have any because it had been so thoroughly
organically kind of grew from Gary's play experience or something.
I think because it had a lot to do with just one person who was very knowledgeable working on the campaign, and there wasn't a lot of extraneous material coming in early on that kind of threw the whole thing off. And I became more interested. I would compare, like, what were the listed diameters or of the different campaign worlds, how much room was there, does this world make sense, which is an important campaign issue and everything. I'd spent a lot of time studying the different worlds and mostly the background rules for the different worlds. Faerun, Forgotten Realms, was pretty thoroughly constructed. There was no point in trying to pick it. It was pretty thoroughly done. But some of the others would be a little loose. Dragonlance had some issues, mainly because it was primarily a fiction world. It was a world constructed for writing fiction, very good fiction. I'm friends with Margaret Weiss and some of the other people who had done that. But on the game side, some of the parts of it, like when you read everything there is to know about Kryn as a planet, some of it doesn't add up. It's just, the way that they built it. But I went down the whole thing like that. I wound up trying to write for different worlds because I was really trying to get a feel for how they worked mechanically in a certain sense. I was very interested in what I called game architecture, how the overall world is actually built, how it's all put together. Like with Gary Gygax's stuff on Greyhawk, the game architecture includes an underworld populated by drow, and it's just a lot of other things like that. How the world is actually put together in a larger scope. Became very interested in that kind of thing, so that helped a great deal.
Yeah, because you were involved. I see listing that for the Birthright campaign setting, you were listed as creative director and meaning, and that was one of these. Were you involved in creative? Because Birthright is one of these that has a different tone and mechanics from a lot of other game worlds that TSR launched.
I was the creative director when it was created, but I didn't have anything to do with the actual assembly of the world. That was Richard Baker and a lot of the other people who are listed in the rules. I didn't actually play test it or design the thing. I helped in some of the, I did get involved in a couple of the play tests where I would do silly, I'm afraid, silly characters, like someone who would go out to meet the giant lich character and come back as an undead, don't feel good, that kind of thing. But they did all that themselves, they got that whole thing set up. Dark Sun, same thing. It's just, they were really searching for, everybody looked at TSR as kind of the one-trick pony, as it had Dungeons and Dragons, and that was pretty much it. And the big struggle constantly going on was to give the pony more tricks, things that would make it much more popular because it had other things that really attracted people to it. Forgotten Realms, was the big draw. Dragonlance was a huge draw because of the fiction, largely, and the modules that would fit together, sequentially. And it was a real struggle from there on to work on, to try and develop campaign worlds that would be popular and have a draw to it and everything like so. That was the. I'm sorry.
Okay. Sorry, please continue.
No, that was it. That was done.
Okay, because I was going to ask about 3 interesting examples when you talk about setting design that kind of stood out, and I'm thinking about Planescape, and I'm thinking the Birthright and like you said, Dark Sun. They are kind of take a different take than the Forgotten Realms, Greyhawk, and even Dragonlance that are more classic fantasy stuff, but they kind of took game mechanics to a new thing, or they went off the beaten track in one way or the other. Were they part of that design idea of philosophy of trying to expand into new areas?
Yes, very much, very much. We would have, I'll tell one of the secrets that we used to have at the TSR was we'd have things we called the blue sky meetings. And this was where nothing was off limits. You came up with what everyone, they boiled it down to individual people coming up with their own game campaign worlds. And then they would get them all together and vote on them and discuss them, and talk about them. Jeff Grubb and I once came up with the same game world, which was where you couldn't go down to the surface of the planet. It was the surface of the planet was covered in clouds. It was all flying. You were basically flying ships. You had halfling pirates and all sorts of things. And it was all based around civilization on mountaintops. A great disaster had cut off the surface of the world, and you were now confined to the highest altitudes. and had to go around that.
Oh, wow.
Jeff Grubb and I wound up coming up with virtually the same idea at the same time, and we wound up combining them and putting it into the running, but it never made it. So, but yes, the Planescape, all of these campaign worlds drew out of what already existed. Planescape, of course, the Outer Planes. It added its own new character race to it, Tieflings, and just basically kept it stuck in the Outer Planes, which was great. I mean, it just had a very exciting feel to it. A lot of people were very much into it. Dark Sun was the gladiatorial arena, which a lot of people were also very much into. You know, the Roman Colosseum and that kind of thing never lost its hold on people's imagination.
A post-apocalyptic fantasy kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And the psionics, they wanted to add psionics. It was the one attempt I can remember offhand where they tried a real psionic world. And I believe it was mostly a success. So as far as the gameplay and everything, we got a lot of good commentary on that.
Yeah.
But so psionics and gladiatorial stuff. And then Birthright, actually, in my opinion, drew largely out of Greyhawk. Greyhawk was where he had named artifacts that were part of the campaign landscape. Very, great things that had stuff, but they weren't controlled by individual nations. And also the idea of kingship, which kind of came out of Greyhawk and some of the other campaigns where you would talk more about what it was like to be a king and actually rule certain
the
things
political
like
dimension came into Birthright in a way that other campaign, it was above the characters. Now in Birthright, it was kind of a new level of mechanic on top of the character, which tied into early D&D where you leveled up and you could get a castle and stuff like that. So,
exactly. And they tried to carry that one as far as they could. So they were excellent. I really wish that Birthright in particular seems to have disappeared completely. I find it very hard to find any Birthright material. Dark Sun is kind of difficult to get. Planescape's a little easier to get hold of, but Dark Sun and Birthright. I'm very sad about Birthright in particular because I really liked that campaign.
Yeah, Birthright had some extra mechanics that I think could benefit almost any campaign to take a look at Birthright and use some of these rules. And Paizo did it with Ultimate Campaign and stuff, have some stuff that ties into the same builds on some of the same ideas, which I think is kind of cool.
I experimented on my own when I was working at TSR with seeing if Birthright rules could be applied to Greyhawk or some of the other campaign worlds. It was very difficult to do because they hadn't been done that way at the Foundation. You would have to wind up creating a new type of Greyhawk and then adding in, the different Ayus, the evil, the king of Nyrond, and that kind of thing. So it would be more difficult.
So Big Mac, I got one more quick question. He says, Gaedril Goldring from your Spelljammer novel is his favorite D&D NPC. Was that your own, or is that one that you were?
Gaedril Goldring.
Yeah.
I'm trying. I know the name, but I can.
From the Maelstrom's Eye.
That was a character I created for the Spelljammer series that they were doing. I really enjoyed doing the Maelstrom's Eye, but kind of got me if anybody else liked it. So, but yeah, Gaedril Goldring I like because she would be your non-typical halfling Kender, kind of character, one who actually played as an adult, even though she's extremely small and everything like that. But she puts herself across as an adult in every way, and it was just a different kind of thing to try, because most Kender and everything are like they're kind of silly. They steal things from you and everything. And Gaedril would steal things from you, but she was also trying to be reasonable as a reasonable person and all that. So she was kind of a favorite character of mine. That's true.
Excellent. So let's and Tom Armstrong, please say hello to everyone. You're in chat, which is great. We have another Dragon Magazine article writer here, and I'm going to go to Dragon 63. right now, because 63 is another great one for you. And we go right to this. One of my favorite classes that I use to this day, the Bandit NPC class. I know Little Bones has a character who's actually a bandit. I love the class. A shifty character for a campaign. I've made some minor tweaks, giving him some the chance to do some weapon specialization for some plus hit and damage. But other than that, I haven't really changed it that much. Mm-hmm. So, did you use this class in your campaign, you and Tom? Yeah, there's Bones. Yeah. So, was this a class that you both created in your campaign, Roger?
If I recall correctly, he and I got the idea, or he got the idea. You know, he's the primary author. He got the idea, and I contributed some things to it, but it's really Tom's article.
Okay.
Yeah, so he would be the best one to answer questions on that one.
And that's Dire Bear in chat is Tom, Dyrebear. So, and I will be sending him some other information. But it's a great class. It's a mix between your ranger and thief, but you know it has some other abilities. But then you finish up your series of demi-human discussion. You had the half work previously with this.
Yes.
The humanoids, and this I think is an under appreciated article talking about, you know, and you mostly discuss kobolds, goblins, hobgoblins, and gnolls in this, but you do attach some of their thoughts in here, and then you also at the end go and we have some deities, some other deities beyond the ones of deities and demigods. Dakarnak. Oh my gosh, I can't even say that. Kurgorbayag. Nomagaya, right? Yeah, and the Sheshuva, which is a monster for Yinog. So, yeah, it's a great article. Fantastic. All created by, now this stuff is not mentioned anywhere else. I'm assuming this is all your own creation. That's fantastic.
Yep, entirely.
Any thoughts like between from elves, dwarves, halflings, gnomes, half-orcs, and these humanoids that sticks out to you that you're like, wow, when you were doing these, Roger? Because I mean, this is just such a base for the future of multiple publications.
Yeah, I kind of have to pick out the gnomes.
Okay.
In particular, because the gnomes have undergone tremendous amount of change. The idea for gnomes, I believe Gary Gygax pinned it down as being from Poul Anderson's fantasy novel, 3 Hearts and 3 Lions, which was about, I can't remember the human's name. He was a famous Danish medieval hero, a fantasy hero. And it was about Holger, I can't remember his name, but in the novel he meets a gnome, and the gnome is pretty clearly not a dwarf. It's, if you had to call it something, I'd call it a shorter forest dwarf. It's really very similar to dwarves, in a great many ways, but it's more of a forest creature than an underground creature. They do dig caves and everything, but they're strongly oriented toward natural environments. And so that was something that's undergone a lot of change, just like the halflings have. Holger Danske, the Viking warrior who never died. My wife next to me has just called it up on the thing.
I should have known that, but damn.
Yeah, considering she's Swedish, so
I speak Danish fairly well, but I'm damn. I didn't know. Holger Danske. Yep.
Yep, Holger Danske. It was the fantasy retelling of his life, and the gnome comes from that. Actually, the troll comes from that too. The standard vision of the troll
Old Norse is the Dnd Troll is Old Norse, definitely. I've heard so much of the old myths and stuff that I heard from growing up, and we had stuff that the Dnd Troll fits into them perfectly.
But the Dnd Troll is actually taken directly out of 3 Hearts and 3 Lions, because the physical description of the troll is a tall, thin, green, a rubbery-haired creature. It's detailed down to the syllable. That's where it came from. I mean, I know a lot of people object to the idea of halflings are really hobbits. They are hobbits. And because I've got the old books that call them hobbits, but we just have to move on from all that for legal reasons. So we're going to pass over all that. But the gnomes went through a lot of change because I think they were seen as being too similar to dwarves. And I'm not quite sure I grasp how Pathfinder has set up gnomes these days.
They're alchemists, a lot of alchemists,
well,
right?
Yeah, and they also made them into kind of fae, almost out there planar creatures that with blue hair and all sorts of stuff. So they then went a further transition again, so to speak.
Yeah, it's just like the Hobbit making the transition to halfling, which makes the transition to Kender. And I mean, and now mostly when people think of halflings, they think of Kender and all that, which is kind of funny. How there was a guy I used to work with, John Pickens, who was quite famous in TSR itself for his concept of game drift. Game drift occurs when you've established a certain thing, but you haven't quite fleshed it out yet. People keep adding on to it. And eventually you get to the point where it doesn't even resemble where you started. Like John Pickens liked to point out that the original D&D Warhorse could not carry a fully loaded knight, a fully armored knight, because it just didn't have the carrying capacity as written in the rules to carry an armored knight. So there were things that people didn't think of that would come back and bite them later in the rules. And I think the halfling, the Hobbit halfling Kender thing is one example of game drift, where now people really just think about Kender and instead of the old halflings. And I think in Greyhawk, I want to keep it as a halfling.
Right.
They're halflings. That's it.
Yep.
But the gnomes, moving from one to the next, I always saw the gnomes of Greyhawk as being pretty much like the Three Hearts and Three Lions. Hughie, that was the name of the character in Three Hearts and Three Lions. So that's one that's kind of stuck out in my head because it has mutated. The concept has mutated a lot over time.
Well, and base D&D, there were no gnomes. Even the base D&D Holmes Basic, there were no gnomes at all. And then they appeared in AD&D, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, Gary had by that time read Three Hearts and Three Lions.
Okay.
And introduced them. Yeah.
Well, that's good to know. I mean, that's a story we did not know, and so thank you very much for that sub. We learned something. We learned something where the gnomes came from and when between 78 and 80, I guess, at that point, right? Because Holmes Basic was 78 in that era, and all right.
Yeah. Holger Dansky was also the inspiration for paladins in the game.
Okay.
Everything he does in the book. If you read the book, you see him laying on hands and the whole shtick. So that was where the paladins.
Oh wow!
So that one book gave three major parts of the D&D game: gnomes, trolls, and the paladins, which Holger was.
Yeah. Jay, which dragon is the gods of the gnomes?
61.
61. Thank you.
Yes, it's 61, and this is an actual funny story. This is when I was a kid. It's the first one I ever bought on my own. This one, 61. Now I went back and got, you get like, I love 53 with the monk on the cover and all those, but 61 is the first one I actually ever bought with my own money when I was young. So in that time frame.
For me, it was 98, I think, or 78. I forgot.
No, it wasn't 1998. No, definitely no.
No, but for me, it was, I think.
98. I was between 1998. I was like, no.
98 was the first, issue 98, I think, is the first one I bought with my own money when it came out. I bought earlier ones.
We were playing for 2 years by this time, but I think it's the first one that actually, got back then. So it was awesome. Yeah. So that's a good one. So and 61, is a great one. I'm gonna get through my dragons here. Okay, let me get through these. I got two other huge ones. Let's do this real quick. And where is it? So I can do this. Article is so huge to my campaign. I think it's in Dragon 73. Be a two-fisted fighting, right? So this is like I can bring this up. Hopefully 73. should have popped up, but it didn't. All right, maybe it's behind this. There we go. Dragon 73, and this is also the dragon with the duelist, which I use to this day as well, which is another great class. But the two-fisted fighting rules, Roger, I know what you say in this article about, well, and no, this is the whole half ogre. My bad, I messed up. So we'll go to that because that's the other one, right? The half ogres, we use half ogres this day too. I'm getting all the one. There's so much content, Roger, you did back then. There we go. The whole half ogre. Ideas for finishing what EGG started. Yeah. So, thoughts on, I know there's a small blurb way back on the half ogre. I think, did Gary do it?
Gary did it.
Yeah, and then you take it and you completely vamp it out so that it's usable at this
point. I think that I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, there's a certain class of gamer that is kind of into power characters, and they want a big, impressive looking power character. Now, Tom Armstrong knows exactly what I'm talking about here. I'm sorry to keep dragging him.
No, it's great.
But I had a character named John Grond. Grond was after the Tolkien weapon or device and everything, but John Grond was a half ogre, and I played him as a power fighter. I have to say that my favorite type of character in any kind of role-playing game is a fighter because they're simple. I don't do very well with magic users, or I'm not very good with thieves. Yeah, I don't like complicated characters. I can't keep them in all their powers in mind, and it helps to have a fighter that is pretty as basic as it gets. And the half ogre was pretty much exactly that. When I read what Gary had written, I was in love with it immediately. And again, this is, I mentioned earlier, I wrote some articles to kind of justify what I was doing in role-playing games.
But that's a great thing. I mean, you're sharing your experiences with everyone. And look what it's done. Last night, Eric Boyd plays a half ogre in my campaign. I mean, think about that, right?
You used them in yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to say that the current character, the Goliath, I think the Goliath is partially derived, at least in thought, from the idea of having a half ogre. I can't say it's my half ogre, it may be Gary's half ogre, but you want a character that's very large, very impressive, and does more damage than usual. The two-fisted fighter article you were talking actually went hand in hand with the half ogre, because I'd earlier asked a question in Sage Advice when I wrote in a thing about it, whether a smaller type of weapon could be used in the offhand. And that, and what I would do with the half ogre character I had, he would use a bastard sword or a hand and a half sword in the dominant hand, and he would use a short sword in the other hand. And so again, I'm just trying to justify what I'm doing in the role-playing games, but it's all seemed to fit together. A lot of that has to do with John Grond.
Okay, that is great. Yeah, so here's your I just put up Breast of Dragon Volume 4. It's from 83, which you also have a great adventure in, which we'll get to in a second. You have a simpler system for unarmed combat here in 83, and then you had your two-fisted fighting article. Oh my gosh, I forget what number that one is. So you fixed pummeling here. The pummeling rules are kind of out there. So you fixed them in this.
They were difficult.
Yeah, they were really difficult. But two-fisted fighting is here too. Give me 1 second. That's another great article. It should tell me right here. Here's the Bandit Npc Dragon Volume 4. This is another great best. Two-fisted fighting is page 45. It's right after that. So we'll figure out what number this is now. But we use this to this day with a minor change. Here it is. It's issue 68. Yeah, and so you have your weapon attacks and all, and it says in the Dungeon Master's Guide, there's like one paragraph, and that's it. It's just skipped over after that. Roger, you're correct. You know, it's -2, -4, right? And that's all it says. And you could use like what, a dagger and a hand axe, I think, in the secondary hand, and that was it. You know, as far as but then you expand on it and explain how to do it and make it more useful. And we've done that in our game, in our old school game, and we use it to this day. We have a minor change on strength where they get half strength bonus and damage in their secondary hand, which we thought made sense for more of a finesse fighter. But yeah, that's another great accomplishment of yours with putting those rules out. So in '83, though, you come up with a mega like one of the biggest named personages in history, and you write a whole really cool adventure.
Oh yeah. I love Baba Yaga. I'm
yes.
Sorry. No, I used her once in a long while. I would use her as kind of the somebody just showed up. You can't fight, so you may as well talk kind of character. I had been interested in the way that Baba Yaga's hut, in particular, had been described throughout fantasy game history. I've actually collected some of the modules and adventures from other game systems as to how Baba Yaga's hut's constructed. The idea in general is that it's always bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. Mm-hmm. You can go anywhere with that. There's a limited number of places. Now I thought, well, yes, okay, that's the idea. And when I got to this one, I'd been playing with I had become interested in the concept of tesseracts or hypercubes, four-dimensional representations of cubic structures, from reading an old Scientific American article. I think it was in a mathematical games section in the Scientific American. It was talking about how the hypercube or the tesseract had been used in art. I think Salvador Dali did a very famous religious picture of the crucifixion done as an unfolded hypercube. And it was, it was really opened my eyes to the possibilities. As I started to study what a hypercube did or what a tesseract did, I thought this would be the perfect thing for a dancing hut, but it has to actually work. I wound up building a cardboard hypercube in my office. It was about this large between my hands. It would unfold and refold, and I could trace the pathways from each room to the next room. And that's what the whole thing is built on. It actually is a three-dimensional representation of a four-dimensional hypercube.
Right. It's the shadow that a four-dimensional object projects into the third dimension. I think that's what Carl Sagan used to say.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. Yes.
That is exactly it.
Just like a 3D shadow projects, you just see what you see on the floor of a 2D, and that's how you got to think about it with that 3D shadow. Yeah, I know. Yeah. See, I learned something back in the day from Carl Sagan. Definitely. Yeah. Absolutely.
You really had to work to get the fourth cube to fold back onto the rest of them.
Right.
But if you could do that partly in your head, I mean, you're not really thinking of a four-dimensional thing. You're just thinking, like you said, the shadow of a four-dimensional thing. If you could fold it back, then it made total sense, and you could do it. So every room in that has only one exit to, well, it has several exits going to different other rooms and everything, but it's all constructed so that if you started to climb staircases or ladders, you would eventually come back to the room you left, and so on and so forth. If you go horizontally, from room to room, you'll come back to the room you left. So I've had similar ideas. I'm actually considering another improbable dungeon that I want to do for another the Greyhawk magazine here.
Oh, good for a journal. That's awesome.
Yeah. So we'll see how that works out.
Was this adventure attached to your Nightmare Realm of Baba Yaga Angler's Quest book? Someone just asked.
Yeah, actually, well, I wrote the Nightmare Realm of Baba Yaga partly based off of this thing.
Oh, cool.
The Nightmare Realm of Baba Yaga was a lot more freestyle.
Okay.
It was intended to be something that was a little more open. It wasn't really supposed to be precise, but it was derived directly out of the dancing hut.
That's awesome. What a fantastic, discussion on that and reasoning behind that. I really appreciate that. Mm-hmm. So, all right, and I got through all my dragons because I know at some point you said you go into the realm, and you're going to attempt it in the future let's do the dungeon first. Dungeon number 1 is 86. What a great cover with flame. Unbelievable. This is your note on the inside cover, and it says here, it talks about, Dungeon Adventures is a new periodical from TSR Inc. in which you, the readers, may share your own adventures and scenarios from AD&D and D&D gaming. And it says, what kind of adventures do you want to see? We're going to offer as broad spectrum of material as possible: dungeon crawls, wilderness campouts, oriental adventures, modules, so class battle system scenarios, and more. So tell us what you want, Roger Moore. So very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cover, I have to say, the cover has a lot of meaning for me. It was done by a friend of mine named Keith Parkinson, who has since died of cancer. It was one of his greatest paintings, I think. My sister looked at it and said, it looks kind of demonic, doesn't it? And I said, it's okay. It's okay.
I love it.
But Keith Parkinson, he was a good friend. I miss him terribly to this day. It was a terrible tragedy. But the cover was magnificent. I mean, this changed a lot of people's. It's kind of funny to talk about it, but the cover changed a lot of people's opinions about dragon treasure. This is a dragon that actually took an entire ship, and put it in his dungeon. And when you start thinking about what a dragon was capable of doing, I talked to some people just apocryphally, and they all said that this had really radically altered their view of what a dragon's treasure was. I mean, you don't think a dragon would actually pick up an entire ship, stuff it in his cave, and keep it and everything on it and everything. I mean, it began to open up possibilities for the power of particularly red dragons, but dragons in general. And so Keith had really hit a nerve when he did this one. He did a fantastic thing.
Oh, it is wonderful. Wonderful cover. Do you know who has the original artwork on this?
There's a guy,
Alex Cameron,
from Asia who was buying up a lot of TSR artwork. He bought one from me, and I can't remember his name offhand. I've got it written down somewhere. He had bought a lot of artwork, and he may have some of the originals from Keith Parkinson's widow at this time is selling prints from a lot of his stuff. So you could still get the original print. I would die for that.
It's such a beautiful, my gosh, absolutely.
Oh yeah. That was a real high impact, bam, right in your face kind of thing.
So Anna, do you want to ask I know you had a series of questions before we get to.
I have a bunch of.
Before we get to this era, which is coming, right?
I was thinking, and it kind of ties in because it chronologically comes in that area of the mid 90s, 95, 96. And it's so cool because you wrote an article in Earth Journal about the planet Earth. That was really cool. You wrote the Earth from the ground up, which I think is the coolest, most scientifically really heavy, getting into the weeds of the whole planet. And this cartography is my spiel, so to speak. I'm really interested, and it's so cool. But first, I need to ask you one question, because this came out in Earth Journal number 3 came out early 96, and then the end of 96 the Dragon Annual came out with a map of Earth that we called the Dragon Annual, the DA1 map. That is that goes in Greyhawk community circles as the cowhide map, so to speak, because and a lot of people have a lot of comments on it. And we talked to Skip Williams about that map, and it came to be apparently very quickly. Did you have any, when you wrote Earth, did you know about that map? Was that in the making because it's in the same year, so to speak, or was that something that just happened completely different?
This is going to sound a little conceited, but I found that map. It was buried in a number of big boxes full of TSR product and TSR writings that there were like throwaways from Gary Gygax and other people. And I had been going through it for some other reason and everything. And I found that map and I pulled it out and I immediately knew I'd hit the gold mine. I thought, oh, hallelujah.
So this map, that DA1 map actually has a history. It was not something drummed up in a weekend there. It actually comes from earlier times.
Oh yes. Oh yeah, much
Ooh,
earlier.
this is
time.
good news.
That is that is actually
Awesome.
a rather
there's our big thing that no one knew.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was I was the one that found that map and began passing it around, photocopies of it to other people, and it kind of took off from there. So I can't say exactly who had drawn that map and everything. It looks like it was professionally done as a cartography kind of thing. So I don't know who exactly had drawn it, but you know, people looked at it and go, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
You know, people recognized it from the early days and everything.
Could it be something that came from Gary's private personal Greyhawk campaign or something like that?
Okay.
I can't.
Well, we know that Skip didn't just make it.
Exactly. That's the good thing. We can't blame Skip for just coming up with it over the weekend. That's what I was worried about.
That was that's quite an old map. And I can't say who had done it, but a lot of people do remember that map floating around as an expansion. I don't know if there was an idea to expand Orth or the Flyness, you know, and start doing other things. Now I know that Gary Gygax, and he said this in print, wanted to do Karatur, the Oriental Adventures thing that was eventually put into Forgotten Realms. He wanted that for Greyhawk. He wanted that system, not the maps as they were drawn up, but he wanted that system applied to a Japanese, Chinese, Korean kind of setup and all that. He had stated that in Dragon Magazine pretty clearly. There had been some discussion about doing one based on India. It just went off from there. So that was pretty much where it took off. Yeah, there had been a lot of discussion, you know, before Gary left about expanding the world of Greyhawk and including different cultural areas, you know, which, you know, for the most part, of course, what's in there is European, although it includes it includes Arabic culture, it includes, you know, stuff from other places like that. So there was always interest in trying to expand campaign worlds, you know, and again, the one trick pony thing, you want to expand what you've got to work with, you know, so people are really much more into it.
But one of the most, and now I need to mention this because otherwise half the Greyhawk community will slaughter me afterwards. Is that all these names like Orkrise, Zindia, and stuff like that on that map, was that something that was thoroughly discussed or coming from, was that on the original map? Or was that something that just came up and you put it in? Because I think that's a lot of criticism around those or opinions, I must say.
I'm not quite sure. The original map I found didn't really have any areas labeled. It was just the map. Now Zindia, I mean, Zind I know is an old name. I don't know where it comes from for India. So there had been great interest in doing India as well as in China.
And you had
Japan.
Nippon and there's a whole bunch of these kind of Earth analog names on the map, so to speak.
But I think that was somebody else added that later. I mean, the original map did not have any other writing on it. It was just the map, which was really all that needed to be there. You just saw it and boom, there it went.
But when you wrote the article in Earth Journal, Earth from the Ground Up, you don't mention that you had like a specific, had you seen the map then or when you wrote the article, or was because good.
I had seen the map, but I wasn't discussing it because there was a general dictum that came out at the time inside the company not to discuss the map outside because there was interest in doing something else with you know, if it turned out to be, you know, that we might be able to turn this into something. And they were very picky at TSR about having industrial spies, which we've had. I can recall some specific incidences that were pretty bad, you know, where somebody inside the company turned on everybody else and sold the idea off. So but
so that information had to be
until
it was
had to
published.
be sat on. That map had to be sat on for quite a time. I mean, there was no written document saying don't talk about it, but they would
nobody was kind of understood that was
it was understood pretty clearly. We're going to look at this and everybody can look at it. We don't care, but don't don't let this out of the company.
Yeah,
okay,
but
that was not to happen.
Yeah, but you had a lot of great analysis, and you kind of play. I love in the article in Earth Journal that you play and you put the calculation, say, okay, if it's this much land and so on and so forth, and the consequences of it. I think that's great example of world building. So everyone, even if you're not interested in Greyhawk, you should read that article in Earth Journal.
What number? Earth Journal 3?
Yeah, number 3. Yep.
Yeah, that article came out of all my studies of all the other game worlds that have been built up. I was coming with kind of a scientific mathematical background. I really was thinking in terms of making it a game world realistic looking. I know there was some pushback on that inside TSR. Some people were very much opposed to that. And I understand why. You know, I mean, it's really a point of view kind of thing. You're talking about fantasy after all. But I was coming at it from the view of I wanted to see how well the worlds were constructed within a more realistic kind of setup. Did it make internal sense?
But I can tell you from the cartography standpoint, that is still a kind of a discussion most game publishers have to contend with, because I can totally understand from a publishing perspective, you don't want to nail down all these resources, because if you want a lake or a river at a specific point that will tie into a good story, you don't want to limit yourself. You want to have kind of just vaguely descriptive but wonderfully looking maps that don't nail down any of the things, so you can invent a forest or lake or little hill or volcano wherever it's needed afterwards.
Exactly. And this is part of the philosophy, I think, of Dragonlance with Kryn, was the idea that they did not want to pin down too much because they was still being actively developed, and it was kind of a complicated issue. So Kryn actually comes from a very different philosophical background than something like Greyhawk, and both of them are perfectly valid. There's nothing wrong with either one, but you have to decide which one you want to go with. Greyhawk was really more toward the, I can nail this down.
Yeah, you want to have the visual canvas to put the stories onto, so to speak. And
Great, Anna. That was great questions. We got some stuff out there that no one knew until only Roger had that. Wow,
that's wonderful.
Always a little tidbit that we get. The community is so much happier knowing. So Roger, that was fantastic.
Thank you.
And it's a great article, and I suggest everyone who's interested in world building, and not only Greyhawk, but if you're interested in world building. But I must say that I love that article, but I will not go to follow the advice literally, because the world is 400-mile difference from Earth, and that's 400-mile in circumference is not doing. They're doing, like you're right, it adds what an X amount of hundreds of thousands of square miles something. But I'm going to make, when I now model the planet, I'm going to use the DA1 map, and your article is a great inspiration, but I'm going to actually model it on Earth's size and not that size, simply because then I can make use of all the cartography tools of the real world. I don't have to retranslate it for the 400 miles. So I'm going to shrink the oceans 400 miles. I will cut a little bit here and there just to fit it in, because that way people can put the geographical data and put it in Google Earth, or they can use all sorts of tools without having to reinvent and come up with new tools. So it's a little bit of a just to accommodate the ease of use of the data, so to speak. But I totally agree that makes a difference, but I hope we can kind of hide that difference in the water areas and have it. But it's a fantastic article, so thank you so much for writing it.
Speaking of fantastic article, let's jump all the way ahead to Dragon 230 and 96 as well. The Orbs of Dragonkinds. Now, Roger, we've done four annual St. Jude fundraisers. Our first year when I was streaming, I did I used the 7th Orb of the Dragonkind, and we did multiple stream events for it. So this article, there's a lot of detail in here on every single orb. I mean, I imagine took a long time for you to put all this together. Did you want to flesh these out just beyond what was in the Dungeon Master's Guide? Was that the thought on this?
I have to There's a story here too.
Great. Awesome.
Okay. Awesome.
Some of the original things that were intended for Greyhawk were slowly being appropriated by other game worlds.
That sounds familiar.
Primarily Forgotten Realms. And I created my own movement, which was to lock everything back into Greyhawk. My whole point was by this time I was already well invested in Greyhawk as my favorite game world, and I began to go through and take one thing after the other. So that article, by the way, was influenced by the Call of Cthulhu game from Chaosium, because Call of Cthulhu offered a lot of literature to go with the adventure. You know, you would do your library search and you would find out this and find out that. So I included little cutouts from famous people, you know, in the Greyhawk campaign that you might come across if you're actually, for some reason, I have no idea why you would want one of these, you wanted to get your hands on an Orb of Dragonkind. I had the second thing that influenced me, other than the Call of Cthulhu game, and well, third thing, other than trying to, you know, plug it into Greyhawk, was that I wanted to make them dangerous.
Oh my gosh, they are.
People need to have an understanding of this. You know, the actual purpose of this thing is not to make you powerful. The actual purpose of this thing is to mess up your life if you get a hold of one. And it adds campaign background. You may get involved in an adventure where you have to find you know, one of the Orbs of Dragonkind, and it may not be avoidable. Well, that's fine. But people were not getting the idea that artifacts were dangerous. They were not getting hold of that. There was a what was that fantasy novel? I'm trying to remember of it. I can't remember. There was a fantasy novel written about basically about an artifact that was treated kind of cavalierly until people actually came across it. Then it was like, that was the game's end. You know, you've actually found the thing, it's real, and it's going to kill you. And everybody has to backpedal, you know, and try and work with this thing. And I wanted to get across to people that these things were not meant to be, you know, oh, I can control the great dragon with this now and everything. Well, it's probably going to control you. And at any opportunity the dungeon master has to do it, I wanted to offer a lot of tools toward that end.
Yeah, none of these end well.
What issue of Dragon is it?
230. This is Dragon 230, everyone.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing ends well. Like, so the one we used that I had, so a Miracle the Chaotic, that great picture. I had a Miracle looking for it in our fundraiser. And you remember that, Anna? It's the first time you ever played my game. You played Mariel.
Yep.
That's the first time you ever played in my game 4 years ago.
Yep.
And it was fun. It was high level, but yeah, the Orbs really didn't come into play that much. But the stories were centered around it. That using the Orbs not a good thing. Just, you know, it drains you a hit point per day until you're dead, basically. You know, so but this article is fantastic. And this is if you want any information, and you have some references here at the end. This is the article you want when you want, if you have any interest in these items, all 8 of them. So yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's
fantastic. Cleo. Sorry.
That's cool. No, I have a cat. I have 2 cats too, wandering around too. So
we have 10.
Yep.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
My wife and I were involved early on in trying to rescue cats, and it got out of control, and then we've had to stop because we can't take any more than 10. 10 is the limit, and we've got cats with every sort of feline disorder and everything like that, but they all just living happily at our house. And you know, I am the main cat wrangler. So I have to take care of everybody.
So this time frame is you're not really doing the editing. You're more doing writing now, and so
yes,
you decide I'm rescuing Greyhawk from the ashes, and I'm retconning some stuff, and I'm making it a little better here. The Crook of Ral and all that, is that? You decide, is that
yes?
Okay.
The Crook of Ral. I definitely intended to stick back into Greyhawk, and you've got the very item that I did it with. Yeah, the Crook of Ral. I absolutely meant to.
Okay. Did you say it went too far? Is that from the ashes? Is that what your thought was for like the badness, or you're just like, we got to get back to a main, like, because
how do you mean exactly?
Like you're like, demons are running all over the place on Greyhawk. I gotta pull it back a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
The Sergeant era.
Yeah, Sergeant.
Yeah. I liked what he had done with a lot of stuff. I was a very big admirer of what he had done. But the end result was that when you've got demons running around in Nyrond in the middle of the day, it's not a playable campaign,
right?
For anyone. I mean, your first level character, Greyhawk was always intended from from Village of Hamlet and everything, what Gary had written. The idea with Greyhawk was that you start at first level and you work your way up. Well, after Sargent's work, a lot of it was from the ashes, especially. You're not going to work your way up. You're going to work your way dead. I really needed to turn it back into. I felt a terrible need to turn it back into an actual adventuring environment. So the Crook of Rao came in conveniently to wipe out the demons and get all that stuff done. And I made there were some other modifications. I can't remember the little tweaks I'd made using Greyhawk specific stuff that would turn it back into what I thought was a playable campaign. I really wanted to move out of the From the Ashes thing. It's a perfectly valid place to play if you're able to time travel, or if you want to start the campaign in that. But it's going to be hard. He made it very, very hard. IUs needed to be shoved back. Greyhawk was in danger of actually.
Yeah, I'm still working on that in my campaign, so we haven't got this far yet. But I'm working on it.
Yeah, you get the idea. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But it's great. I totally agree. I love what a lot of Carl Sargent did too. But then you still have to work with it and make it right afterwards, kind of thing.
Yeah, I really wanted to go back to what Gary's original idea was. To make it a core campaign world, and it just wasn't working. And as it was set up, it was in danger. I think there was what was I used the Undying was the unpublished one.
Ivid the
Undying.
Yeah,
my mistake.
That's okay.
No.
They all begin with I. I get them.
Yep.
But Ivid the Undying, kind of shoved it a little further in that direction. I got a copy of that, but it really needed to go back to its roots more than anything. I did my best Gary Gygax's impression for whether it was successful or not. But I really needed to move that back to the old days. It had to go back right away.
Yeah.
Did you make that decision with a group, or did you say you just decreed, I got to do this? How did that come about? I'm just curious.
I did that on.
Yes, I like that.
Wow.
All right,
take
charge.
I had already made up my mind that this was the way it was going to go, and I didn't discuss it very much with anybody. There wasn't any point. I was working away. This was during the time when I was working as a telecommuter. And after 1995, I was working as after
in Kentucky. Okay.
97. Yeah, in Louisville, Kentucky. It was 1997, 1998.
And you could put that into action in publishing The Adventure Begins and so on. That was. Okay, wonderful. Because they're some of the best Greyhawk products ever.
Yeah, this is the one you can get. You can get this drive-through RPG. You can still get this.
Yeah,
which is great.
And what I love so much about them is that even if I had read almost everything that was ever written about Greyhawk before then, that's when I could start getting the big picture, right, so to speak. I could kind of fill in. I understood Greyhawk afterwards in a way I hadn't before I've read The Adventure Begins. And that's why I think you should start, if you want to get into Greyhawk, that's one of the early ones you should read.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I have a question, though. Roger the Dretch Moore. Is your name in here?
I just like the idea of. I had gotten some pushback from some of the ideas I've been tossing out over the Greyhawk AOL thing, and I understood it, and I enjoyed all the work with all the people at Greyhawk AOL. They were fantastic people, but there were times I felt like a dretch. there were times I would get some feedback. I would read it and I'd go,
Yeah.
well.
Harold Slave Lord Johnson, Lisa Queen of the Spiders Stevens. That's funny. So that's good. You got your names in there. So from that comes this, right? Here's another change out, because you Alaluk and Tensor are killed off. You know, they're killed off. And you're like, well, let's add in, I know Warna's Storecoat appears in Mordekain's Fantastic Adventure, so he's in there, but I don't know about Alamazad the Wise or Theodane. Are they your creations, those two? Okay.
Those two were new. I was broadening out the cultural background a little bit. I wanted to get somebody from the far west, basically the Baklunish, the Arabic culture. I wanted to get him in there, and I could not figure out for the life of me why the owls had not been included in, something that was basically a wizard's magical kind of thing. And so I set up the thing with Theodane.
Right, but I love the mix with Theodane and Hutnam Mosk, the Greyhawk Dragon too. That's great.
Well, you got to have a Greyhawk Dragon and Greyhawk, so I mean, there it is.
That was awesome. It's a great story. You get Tensor back, but you keep Alaluk killed. Any reasoning behind that?
Just moved on.
Just moved on from Alaluk.
Just moved on. It's not like, death is always kind of optional in fantasy. It's I mean, most Americans, I would say, think death is optional. But I wanted to say, no, not this time. Not this time. We actually lose one. I did a thing about Alaluk's former residence. I think I wrote up a dungeon based on that. Yeah, you
did. And we actually, there was an auction for it. It's an adventure, right? You actually auctioned it off, Alaluk's residence.
There was supposed to be a map that went with that. I don't know what happened to the map. There was an actual map detailing it. It's disappeared. So I think somebody might be able to recreate it.
I didn't realize that was your adventure. I'd bring it up because we actually, Alan's deep known character in Greyhawk bought it. That's hysterical. And we ran that adventure. Wow. That's really cool.
Okay. That was heavily influenced by Call of Cthulhu too. As a matter of fact, Call of Cthulhu had a very profound influence on a lot of my writings after the year 2000. Well, I would say even sooner than that. After the 1990s, Call of Cthulhu really made a big difference in how I wrote articles. I began to look at them in a deeper sense. Call of Cthulhu would constantly emphasize that there was more background that there's a lot more has happened than you're aware of, and it would detail that. It would set it up. They talk about the layers of the onion. You would get further and further into the mystery, and I began to apply that to a lot of the stuff I had written. When there's scraps of paper and notes and things like that, you find that you have to put together as part of a puzzle. So that was what with Alaluk. But with the rest of it, I forgot your original question.
Oh, it's okay. About Alaluk and Tensor.
Yeah. I wanted to get it back up to 8 again. And,
I agree 100%.
Restore it as an active force within the Flyness, because it's something everybody can relate to, the 8. That kind of thing. And I wanted to bring that back.
I think it's fantastic because, and we could do without Alaluk. We got, there's been no change. I love Jalarzi too. That's a great character as well.
Yeah, really, really off the wall kind of, totally switched out sort of character. I wanted to make one correction on Tensor's Castle, though. I had forgotten to mention. Ed Greenwood actually was the one who pointed this out to me, was that if you approach Tensor's Castle from the ethereal plane or the astral plane, nothing stops you. I should have thought of that. And I'm sorry to say, the dungeon master who's running that, if they're able to not teleport in, but if they're able to move through the ethereal plane or astral plane, you're going to have to figure out something to stop them from getting in there that way, or limit the access. So if they come in from the astral plane, they go to one room specifically designed to pick up astral travelers, or things. And maybe it's blocked off, maybe it's underground and wasn't designed to have people get into it without Tensor being there, to figure out what to do with them.
Cool.
That's a bit of one of the only pieces of errata I have for the whole thing. So sorry about that.
Oh no,
that's great.
Ed Greenwood caught me.
Well, Ed, when he played last night at the end when we were done, Ed said to Anna and me, "Please remind Roger about his wonderful RP testing of gully dwarves."
Yes.
Yeah, well, I like gully dwarves a lot. Yeah. So I don't know what else to say about that.
But he laughed so much.
Yeah, he laughed a lot last night.
We have to ask you about that.
Yeah, gully dwarves. So I like tinker gnomes and gully dwarves. Yeah, Margaret created some wonderful variations.
Oh yeah, they're so full of characters. So yeah.
Yes.
So Gary Julian asked me a question to ask you, and that is when this time frame is about close to when you're interacting with fans on TSR Online AOL, and you came across Eric Mona. How did that?
Well, he was working with Polyhedron. If I remember correctly, he was working with Polyhedron, and I was writing a series of articles for Polyhedron, and so I became friends with him then. Great guy, very, very knowledgeable about everything. So that worked out very well.
Excellent, and you love Pathfinder to this day, obviously, and Eric's a big part of that.
Oh my God! Pathfinder. I personally think Gary Gygax was heading in a direction similar to what Pathfinder was. I mean, if you read the Mythos series he did, Mythos Magic and all of that game, he was trying to set up a skill system, where you could improve your skills. There was a number of things he was trying to set up. There are very different ways you can do that. And, I happen to like, what Pathfinder did better than anything I'd ever seen before. I thought it finally got to the point. The only previous skill systems that I'd ever seen were the ones from Chaosium, like Call of Cthulhu or, oh my goodness, any of their other games where there were, they had very definite setups for skill systems, as well as, other stuff like that. And it was Pathfinder was the first time that I came across one that made sense and I really enjoyed working with. But Eric did an incredible job with that. Just fantastic.
Eric has one of the best, most loved characters in my campaign.
He has
Venarium Vord, a crazed specialty priest of Ralashaz.
Oh yeah, and the way he plays that priest is fantastic. When he had one spell left and gaseous form and stuff, it was fantastic. Those episodes he'd been on playing 3-4 times now.
At least I think it's been about 5 times.
5 times, to play that character, and it's such a wonderful experience just to be part of that game when you sit there.
Definitely. So Eric's definitely a wonderful treasure. So Dewey Carathon in chat, and that's Rick Miller, wanted to say thank you, because he says you were a lot of inspiration for him to take over, for him with our journal, and also to get the very last issue of Dragon. I think he and Gary Julian had that article in it about artifacts. I think is that the one, Gary? So he wanted to say thanks in chat. So to you. Yeah,
absolutely, no problem.
Yeah,
thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah, definitely. So Anna, do you have any other any questions?
I have one question. Were you involved a little bit in the Living Greyhawk Gazetteer 2000 before you left, or for it to come? Okay, no.
I did some editing on it and everything, but I was not one of the primary people on that one. That was entirely Eric, if I remember correctly, Eric Mona and the other people.
Yeah,
but
Gary
no,
Julian.
I was not deeply involved in all that.
Yep.
No, they handled that one very well.
Well, yeah, it's another wonderful Greyhawk asset. I think that also sums up a lot of stuff and expands on and deepens the knowledge of a lot of stuff. So yeah.
Yes.
We have a question from Gaetano he asked early, and I held it off till the end. Is there something you regret you didn't get to do for either Greyhawk or rules or something that you're like, wow, I wish I could have tackled that?
Yeah, because then we get to see it.
That's a tough one.
Yep.
That's.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, was that something that ended up in the edited out or something like that?
As Ed says, on the cutting room floor.
Exactly, the cutting room floor is something that.
No, actually, there's nothing like that. I had wished I'd been able to do more with Greyhawk, but real life got in the way of that.
Yeah.
And particularly much later on and everything. Yeah. So it's a great pleasure for me to come back. I think the things that I enjoy most doing with Greyhawk are what I'm starting to do for the Earth Journal, talk about the fringe areas of Greyhawk. I don't want to go into Niron dynastic politics. That's not my place. I know, sorry, I have a runny nose.
That's okay.
No, apologize for that. But I had a deep, what I feel like was a deep knowledge of how Greyhawk was put together. I mean, I can't follow the mind of Gygax on everything like that, but I had done a lot of research on it, and I was able to put together some general principles about how it was structured, what it was like. I think when most people say, you know, it was really for, you know, a pure adventuring kind of thing, that's true. That part is true. It was a very pure adventuring kind of thing, but particularly in what made it Greyhawk, like naming things after people. I did that in, I borrowed that idea. I did that in The Adventure Begins. Well, actually, where I was talking about different people I had created and renamed in there. A lot of them were people I'd actually known from the AOL Greyhawk thing, and I redid their names a little bit. I remember.
Oh, that's awesome.
Nightscreed, one guy named Nightscreed. He's in there.
Yeah,
with his name.
I remember that.
Campfire,
yeah. He was pretty good. He came up with a lot of. He was one of my critics, and he was very good at it. He really got me thinking straight on a lot of stuff, and I appreciated that. But but there's just a lot more to it that kind of adds in how you build the world from the ground up. The actual, what I was saying, the architecture of the world, how it's structured. Yeah. I want to work with like kind of alternate Greyhawk related planes or worlds, or I don't want to give away anything I've got coming up in Earth Journal, but I do get into the idea of gates again, talking about gates in the world of Greyhawk. I finally get to part 2 of the article.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that so much for the future Earth Journal.
I think that's in Best of Dragon 4 or 3. That one.
Okay. Yeah.
Let me look up real quick here for everyone. What we're let me go to Best Dragon. I think it's 4.
Okay.
Let me check. Let me check in the table of contents, or is it 3? I can't. Riding High, Roger. Maybe it is 3. Let me check 3 real quick here. See, I know it's in one of the Best of the Dragons.
So Prespo says 2. Best of Dragon 2.
It's in 2.
That's what.
No, because I don't think Roger was around when Best of Dragon 2 came out.
Theory and uses of gate.
That's not.
Amy says 2 as well.
Yeah, that's Ed Greenwood.
That's Ed's.
Ed Greenwood had been doing a lot of thinking about gates.
Oh, cool.
He brings up some things that I don't. So it was a very good article.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not sure specifically where that one is, but someone can. Yes, that is. We got to find Roger's
article. It might be
article.
In one of these from AOL collection.
Right, possibly. But hey,
Yep.
I'm trying to think of there was a question about, were you a fan of Spelljammer?
Yes.
Roger. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, very much. Very much. Jeff Grubb and I actually are the co-creators of the giant space hamster, which has shown up in every role-playing game.
Yeah, and it's now hot topic because they are a cool latest fad, because Wizards of the Coast is launching that space hamster is part of the one of the latest things coming up.
Minsk and Boo.
Jeff Grubb did the original thing about giant space hamsters. There was a throw-off sentence he put in the rule book for the Spelljammer box set that talked about the giant space hamster, or the giant hamsters running the Tinker Gnome Spelljammer ships by running in the big wheels with the rubber bands, and I picked up that idea and I just dragged it off to its worst possible extreme when I did up the thing for all the other stuff. I was borrowing a lot of my old Tinker Gnome humor that I got, but that was Spelljammer hit a place really close to my heart because of the giant space hamsters, which I haven't found anybody that hates them yet, but some people have said they wanted to kill me for it, but that's okay. I understand. So
they seem to love it. So yeah, it's so cool and yeah.
I got one more question, as I know we don't want to keep you too long. We always ask this of all the guests: do you have a piece of memorabilia like it's like your most treasured possession from that time? Is it a painting or artwork or?
I'm sorry to say that I had a painting by Keith Parkinson, but I had to sell it because I lost a job at one point, and we were in terrible debt. And I sold it, and we were able to make it through. So, in a kind of funny way, he tossed me a lifeboat for my life, literally a lifeboat for my life, before he passed. And I'd been eternally grateful to him that he was able to actually rescue part of my life just from giving me that one painting. It was from a book I'd done. It was supposed to be a Conan the Barbarian book, and he had done a cover for it, but it was rejected because it shows Conan from behind, not Conan's face. And he's fighting a type 5 demon, one of the lady with the 6 arms and the snake body.
Marilith.
Yeah. Oh, and he did an unbelievable. I may still have photographs of that. I think I do still have photographs of it, but it was an unbelievable picture he had done, and I had it hanging on my wall, and I'm afraid I had to lose that. So of the things that I still have, it's not much. The guy who was buying all the paintings bought a lot of stuff. I may still have a couple of things around, but I'll have to poke. It's a good question. That's a valid question. I hadn't thought about that, but I have to poke around.
Yeah.
So, what would you like to say in closing? I know we've kept you here a while, and we're really appreciative. We found out a lot of data tonight. A lot. I get to meet Tom too, the Bandit in chat. So that's so awesome.
Yeah, it's been a long, strange trip. Greyhawk caught my attention when I came on with TSR, and never really let me go. I thoroughly enjoyed the creation, the time and effort and the thought that went into building it. And, I've really enjoyed being a part of helping to keep it going. And I'd like to continue that. So even if it's for free, that's the best part. I don't have to worry. I mean, I'm taken care of. We're not in a financial lack, and I certainly would rather just create something for free than anything else right now. I need a hobby, as my wife said.
The community will they love it. So
yes.
Yeah. So when you're coming back, it will be a wonderful addition to.
So I'm gonna ask a question here. You still playing, right?
The game's in hiatus right now. We're waiting for the campaign to get restarted, but they had to stop doing it for personal reasons, so running the game. But I'm still up for a Pathfinder game if we can get back together with people. So we'll see.
So every couple months, I have the Ed Greenwood 2-drink minimum group, which is Anna, Ed, Eric Boyd, Tony Winslow Brill, Eric Mengi, and then we add a special guest in, and it's every couple months. Maybe if you were to consider jumping in and playing a game with Ed, you're more than welcome to. I would love to have you on.
It's old school.
We'll see what happens.
Okay,
through Zoom. Yeah,
sounds very good. Sounds cool. So anything you want to shout out, Roger, that you've been doing? Any other things? I know you got some Earth Journal things going on, but
nothing special.
Okay.
Just want to continue working with Earth Journal.
Yeah.
And coming up with some stuff that might be useful for people doing Greyhawk campaigns. Just trying to find things to keep it going for as long as possible. So that's all.
Wonderful.
I think, All right. It's been very good to be with you.
Yeah, thank you. We're gonna do some shout outs and the giveaway. One thing I want to share with you though, Roger, is this before you depart. You mentioned some names. I'm gonna pop it up. A lot of people. This is Gabbin 197. Gabbin 200 is coming. Our 200 special show is coming, and we're doing a Wizards 3 discussion from the Dragons. We have Ed Greenwood, Jim Ward, and Jeff Grubb on the same show.
Oh my God! Yeah,
coming.
Very cool.
Yeah, June 12th.
Good people.
It's confirmed. Yeah, it's confirmed. So yeah, I just want to let you know, because you said you're talking a lot with Jeff, and Jeff's going to do the Dragonlance part. And Jim and Ed. So it was Ed's idea, and just wanted to share that with you, that we will be. That'll be a really fun discussion coming up in a couple of weeks, and thank you
Great
so
people,
very much for your
all
time.
of them.
Yeah, absolutely. People. They're definitely wonderful people. But thank you so very much for your time. I hope you have a great evening, and we'll keep in touch. And we're here. The community's here, and you always can reach out anytime to us. We'd be more than happy to, if you need anything from any of us, please.
Just reach out.
Absolutely.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. Yes. All right. You have a good night, and talk to you soon.
Yep.
You all too. Oh, and thank you to my wife for getting me.
Thank you, sir. What is her name? What is her first name, by the way?
Diana.
Diana, thank you so very much, Diana.
Thank you so much for
we really appreciate it.
Organizing this.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. Nice talking to you. Thank you.
Good talking to you.
Thank you for your time.
Yep.
We'll talk. Have a great night. We'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All righty. So as we're waiting for okay, so we're gonna do the giveaways. Wasn't that awesome, everyone? Yeah, we're giving away. This is what we're giving away. It's an original. I don't want to hold them too long. Yeah.
No, exactly.
See you in New York, Jim. Thank you for your support. If you win this, I will keep it in. You got to go to work. It's cool. This is an original Return of the 8, second edition. You can't get it on Drive-Thru RPG. Donated by Troy. Last call for sign-ups for it. All right. Then we're going to do our shout-outs. Yeah, it was awesome, wasn't it? I will get it out in the mail tomorrow. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, we had. I'm sorry, I had Steve Winter's name up the whole time, and I can't believe Gary put it in. I was like, oh my gosh, what a mess up that was. All right, here we go. Closing it out. All right, and then we'll do quick shout outs, and then we'll find someone to rate in. Okay, we won't keep you long tonight. All right, closing this up. The winner is Obsidian Risk. Oh. Scott, nice. Please be on the claim, Obsidian Risk. Good person, very good person. I want to make sure he just got it still on. There you go. Yep, you got it, Obsidian Risk. Grats. So Anna, what's going on?
There will be a huge haul of there are 2 posts coming up very, very soon. It was just some research on this and my game and stuff, and I can report in my game session Warduke made an appearance.
Nice.
In my game.
Very cool.
So, I hope Amy and the others liked it in the session.
That is awesome.
Warduke is now in my campaign, and so yep. So that was it, and there will be there will be a heraldry dump on for my patrons. All of my patrons coming with 60 new shields added to the so it's getting up there. I'm at 250, 280 or something like that. So only less than 100 to go. So before all of the old shields are converted to the new better standard, so to speak. And then I probably added another 100 to the list that are on the Greyhawk map. So and that is coming, and there will be a deep dive in settlement cartography and development and design, so to speak, coming. And that article turned out to be way more expansive than I thought originally. So I'm going to work on it a few more days. And so that will fall sometime during the week. And then there will be some other cool ideas, including writing. Now I'm thinking about writing a little bit about how I implemented Warduke in my campaign for my mid-tier patrons and have that little design of how I've done it in my campaigns. You can kind of say that's a good idea, or you can say, no, I don't want that for my campaign. So even bad ideas can be good to listen to, so you know what not to do if you don't like it. So that's what coming up first, and then the 598 map is undergoing, and the Altamira project and Tim's up there in the rovers is going on as well.
Awesome.
And Minnie is still here. She's there. She wants more treats. So yeah, she's still going strong.
Tomorrow night, because I have my son's jazz band recital on Wednesday, we have a Legends of Lords tomorrow night, Assassins, Monks, Anti-Skaggoth adventure discussion, and specialty classes. So, yes. Thank you, New York GM. It's awesome. Thank you so very much. Yeah. Yes, this is... this will be, we'll talk about, characters that are in published source of these classes tomorrow. That'll be tomorrow at 8. So special day tomorrow, Monday, 8 o'clock. I only have 3 streams this upcoming week because I'm going to be doing some family stuff during the weekend. All right. We also have, so Thursday, TBD, and I don't even know what I'm doing yet. I have not even started planning for Thursday's adventure. Been so busy this week with other stuff. I will get there. It'll probably be a one-shot because Build a Master Crafter won't be there. Thursday night, we'll have a game, Infinite Dimensions giveaways. And then number 198 for the Gabbin. We're going to finally get to our we've had so much great content. The Wall of Fame deep dive will start. So I'm going to start in Temple of Elemental Hamlet and Temple of Elemental Evil, show you what I did to expand on the area, really go into a lot of stuff, bury this vampire Thrommel bullshit once and for all. Okay? All right? Bury it. Okay? And yeah, I'm just going to explain some things you can do to expand on your campaign. We'll go over a lot of my other ones, but I will give you my thoughts on Nold. Absolutely. Yep. So that's funny. I got a lot of jokes out of that. That'll be next Sunday. Then there'll be a 199, and then there'll be the 200, which is the Wizards 3. Which look at the 3 guests we have on that. But the day before the Wizards 3, we have our next special game. Okay, and that'll be Saturday, the 11th of June. The Slav Squad returns. I still don't have a special guest. I may not have one on this one, but we have all 6 have confirmed. Mandy Bones, Darling, MJ, Myriad, and Zarathon are all confirmed for this one. The name of this one is actually it's called Deception. So where I kind of did a little deception last night, but this will be a little different kind of deception with the group, and that'll be the 11th of June, and then the very next night is our wonderful Sunday evening 200th Gabbin show, celebrating that with the Wizards 3 discussion. 3 monsters, right? I mean, Anna monsters. Ed, Jim, and Jeff all in the same show. I'm so excited about that, and that's what's going on. Grats Obsidian Risk for winning the giveaway. And thank you all for such a wonderful show tonight, being so kind to Roger. I think he really enjoyed it. We got a lot of great information out. Now we know this map was found. It's like kind of like finding like the treasure of the lost Dutchman or whatever. You know what I mean? So
that was so good. We know that Skip Williams didn't make it up during the weekend. So that's great.
Yeah,
so,
it was a great evening, a wonderful discussion. I'll read into Darling tonight, and we'll call it a night. And hope you all have a wonderful evening. We'll see you tomorrow night. My schedule this week: Monday, Thursday, and then either Sunday or Monday, depending on where I am barbecue wise on Memorial Day weekend. Okay, for that Gabbin, I'll let you know well ahead of a time if it's going to be just normal Sunday night, if it's going to be the Memorial Day Monday night, because I had something. I'll let you know. All right, so it's only a normal 3 stream week. I had 5 this week, 6 coming with tomorrow's. So Skip Williams still made up it sounds like it, Gary. He made up the god awful labels. All right, let's raid into her. Everyone have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow night. Thank you for the wonderful support. Right buttons. I didn't really hit many wrong buttons tonight.
No. That's good.
Remember, you can go over to Bones too. What was that on Fantasy Mapping? FMS's Fantasy Mapping show comment. That was Friday. That was a good one too. Rating and setting it up. Then we will this rolling here with some great content and guests as we go. I will be talking about Virtual GrowCon soon. All right, 90 going in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See you tomorrow night. Thanks. Wow.
Yep.
Just make sure that's good.